In a vast wasteland of entertainment where radio has become obsolete, stands an embittered man teetering at the edge of sanity. With help from radio friends, he's about to embark on a global mission that would change the course of history as we know it. Broadcasting live from the secret studios on the banks of the Brandywine River in Delaware is Mitchell K.C. Hill. And up to the Great White North in Vancouver is Alexander Knight. Introduce himself. There I am. Good. Nice edit there. So my name is Mitchell K.C. Hill. I'm the old radio guy. This is The Last Angry DJ, and it's show number 52. It's hard to believe that we've been able to go 52 without being thrown off the air by some, organization that manages YouTube and all the podcasting. But we're going to have an exciting show today. It's a little bit of the returning heroes from the past. Hopefully they won't be haunting me, but we'll introduce him in just a second. For now, I'd like to throw it over to Mr. Alex Knight, the producer and tech guru of The Last Angry DJ.
Good to be here, Mitch. Thanks. It is good to be here with we're going to make it official this week because he's been on the show for a while now, but Mark Giuliani is officially now part of the team. He's on the back end crew managing questions, but he adds so much interesting perspective as someone who's in the business of radio, who owns radio stations. So I just want to formally introduce him and just welcome him to the show.
Yeah, Mark.
Oh, shucks. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Mark Giuliani coming in from Washington, D.C., own DTD Media, which is the talk of Delmarva with 2 stations in Delaware. And it's good to be here, and I enjoy myself here.
Yeah, I agree. And for episode 52 of, I wanted to say The Last Angry DJ, that's what you're here for. This is the show that bridges the gap between old media and new media. We interview luminaries in the world of broadcast, but it's not just limited to traditional broadcast because we interview YouTubers and podcasters and all that sort of stuff. And I would encourage you to take a look at some of our past episodes if you missed some of those great guests. And we do have a great guest today, don't we, Mitch?
I hope so. I'm looking forward to him being great. I've known him for a long time, so that's a good start right there. And by the way, Alex, once again, greatly done without a teleprompter, by the way. He does that right off the top of his head, does all that intro stuff. And I want to echo your comments about Mark Giuliani. Mark's been with us from the beginning, but now he's more and more here. So we just want to acknowledge Mark's existence on the planet and also his great advice and tutelage. Is it tutelage? Tutelage on the show. Yeah, I screw up all the big words. So this is The Last Angry DJ. I do the old stuff. Alex does the new stuff. And our guest today is somebody that's put up with me, I guess is the best way to put it. His name is Chris Alberts, and he owns Standing Room Entertainment. He's also a freelance LD, a theatrical producer, music producer. I don't know where to stop because you do just about everything I can imagine, Chris. Welcome aboard. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me back, Mitch. It's I'm sorry that it's 52 episodes in and you're going to break the luminary thing. I'm not going to be one of those luminaries. I'm sorry, but
is that a lighting term?
No. Well, he used that term early, and the word stuck with me. And I thought, well, am I going to bring anything bright to this? I don't know. Anyway, yes, a lumen. A lumen is a lighting term. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And here's the other thing that's interesting about Chris. I'm gonna tell you a number of things that makes Chris special.
Oh boy.
He used to be my producer when I was on WSTW here in Wilmington, Delaware, and I did the morning show. Chris came on sort of reluctantly. He wasn't really recognized. I kind of snuck him in the back door, and eventually he got recognized for what he contributed to the program. And Chris really put the show together. So here's the conversation I've always wanted to have since we started this program: is Chris, the producer of my early radio shows, talking to Alex, the producer of today's podcast, The Last Angry DJ. There's going to be some, I think there's going to be some stuff thrown. They're going to pile on, and it's going to be a very interesting question. If they ask each other back and forth, was Mitch like this back then? And I'm sure the answer will be yes, and all of those things. But Alex, are you interested in talking to your fellow producer who had to handle me way back when in the 90s? Were you born in the 90s?
What do you mean?
Well,
Alex, I'll start. Alex, what at 1 to 10, what's the maintenance level on Mitch for you?
Oh, geez, where do I start? He's generally pretty good. Once in a while, I think I have a fairly thick skin. I know how to handle people that sometimes can be a little difficult. But no, I think our relationship, all joking aside, is pretty good.
Yeah, I would say there's Chris, there's respect going both ways, and as
That's
the
what it
co-host
is,
of
yes.
this program, the respect kind of neutralizes any bon mots or bad things that may be said. So I got a thick skin too, and it goes both ways. And I remember I used to say stuff to Chris like when he came on board as the producer. He kind of came in like a large weather system into the studio, and he took control, and he did a great job with it. But I'd have to give him little tips, little things that, well, here's what you do and here's what you don't do. I'll never forget saying one time, this is typical Chris. I'd say, Chris, remember when there's a microphone in a room, you never swear. And he said, fuck no! And I'd say, okay, thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. That's the kind of Chris that we know and love. He will say whatever's on his mind. And that was the kind of guy you wanted behind you because, when you have a producer, if you ever watched, what was it, the Larry Sanders show?
Larry Sanders. That's who I idolized, man. Are you kidding? Artie?
You were like Artie on the Larry Sanders show.
Yep.
And if there was ever a bad thing that had to be done, somebody fired, a guest refused, or somebody got into trouble, I'd just sort of say, Chris, take care of that, will you? And Chris would
That's exactly. I was always the dirty work guy.
Yeah, you did the dirty work. And if there were any, pundits or people like saying nice things about us, I'd immediately accept the responsibility of, that contest, that was my idea. What do you think?
I mean, what's funny is, you had a lot of years in radio, and I had zero experience. Now, I grew up in backstage and broadcasting it, so I understood the beast, but I had never done radio. So I had a lot of theater behind me, which I deal with colorful personalities every single day, and I think that kind of prepped me for the radio world. And when I first came in, there was a lot of reluctance and the whole idea of feeling, okay, how does this work? It's still entertainment, but it was a whole different thing because there were so many mechanical pieces that went along with it. Once I got comfortable, though, then the fun kicks in, I guess, and you don't have to care as much. I mean, I should have probably, because you're still talking to thousands of people every morning, and you got to be careful what you say, obviously. But it was also about pushing that line, right? That's what we always wanted to do. You push that line as much as you can until management calls you in to say, why are you pushing the line?
Yeah, I used to avoid the general manager used to stare through the window at us, and I'd be sitting there, and I'd say to Chris, I'd say, he's looking at us right now, right? And Chris would say, yep, he's staring at you right now.
Yeah, and in that studio there was a door. It was just the door with the window, and you'd see the face in the window. Right?
You could just see this little, what's the actor's name? Woody Allen. He looked like Woody Allen.
Yeah, he was just
he was a classic old style general manager, and general manager is the ultimate authority in a radio station, and. The building was kind of like a U shape with something in the center that sort of blocked it. And I knew that he'd always be coming up from his office when I got off the air. So I'd always make sure that if I saw him out of the corner of my eye walking up to talk to me from the aisle, I'd immediately switch to the other side.
To the other direction, right? Or head up the steps to the music room, right?
Or sneak out the back door.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So I'd do anything to avoid a confrontation with the general manager because he was just that kind of guy where he'd drill me about, well, you said this and you did that, and I just didn't want to deal with it. I just left Chris by himself, and he'd go in. If he wasn't going to get me, he was going to get Chris, and Chris would have to explain why Mitch did this or did that. It was the best of times and the worst of times.
Yeah, and that's, but that's the whole thing. Like, again, coming from a theater background, you work on your show, you put your show up, and that's your show. Whereas here, you do the show, you kill yourself for 3 hours, and then they will begin to nitpick you for each hour of what you did right and wrong. And you're like, oh my gosh, let us just do what we know works, and we're just talking to people. That's all we're trying to do, and playing the same songs over and over as well.
And Chris, how would you define the role of the producer. And I'm somewhat asking this because it's interesting with the relationship that Mitch and I have, because he's in some ways sort of a client because it was his concept for the show. He knew what he wanted, and I'm just doing the technical stuff. Now I'm crossing the bridge because I'm now in the territory of being on the show, so I'm the talent as well, so I have somewhat of a say, but I still want to respect what his ultimately his creative vision for the show. So sometimes we're a little at odds with each other, and sometimes it's tiny little small stuff. But like, where do you see the line between producer and talent? Because you obviously, everybody's got to respect each other's roles too. And how do you deal with conflict when one person, it almost seems like they're sort of trying to tell you how your job actually is and how you should operate?
Ultimately, as a producer, I still have to answer to the talent, and that's the only person I answer to, right? I know I'm supposed to be answering to the promotions director and all the other people along, and the general manager. I know I'm supposed to answer to him, but ultimately, if I would come up with an idea and say, Mitch, I think this is the bit, let's play it this way, or here's the game, here's how it works, and he's like, I'm not feeling it, I can't shove it down his throat, because then it's going to tank, right? Like, if he's not going to invest himself in it, then there's no sense moving forward. So that's where you yank it. Now, if we're going to do something and it goes great and we both feel good about it, but then the general manager calls in and says, yeah, you guys can't do that. That's where conflict was always hard for me, because I know what worked. I know what the listeners got out of it. Because I got the feedback from listeners calling in saying that was great, and yet the station may not want to go down there. Ultimately, Mitch would always have say, and I always respected that. He was there, it's his name, it's his show. So ultimately, he has to feel good about what I'm presenting so that he invests in it. Like, again, if he doesn't invest, he's not going to like it.
That's very nicely said, Chris. Thank you. And I thank you for that. But I think that at the all time, even if we got at odds about something, I think that there was a mutual respect that always existed. I would have your back, you would have my back. And yeah, you did clean up some messes for me. Thank you very much. Just as Artie did on the Larry Sanders Show, in such funny ways that they happen. But when I first started doing mornings on WSTW, I'd been off of radio for about 10 years, maybe a little more. And I was coming from a big market to a smaller market. And they originally had planned to have me there just for a couple of weeks to fill in for somebody else. And it was weird that the 3 weeks turned into sort of 3 years. I guess it was almost 3 years that I did it for, because I wasn't sure I could do it. I was really kind of nervous about going back on the radio, especially doing something different. Like, it's easier for me to do it now on a podcast, because I've had experience like doing the morning show on the radio, where I used to talk for 10 or 15 seconds at a time when I was at WFIL in Philadelphia. My conversation lasted 10 or 15 seconds. That was it.
Right.
And I was branding the station, or talking about the sponsor, or the Big Mac attack from McDonald's, whatever. And when I came to WSTW, there, at a time when we did play CDs and cart machines and stuff like that, there was a lot of things distracting me from doing the program. And I thought, all the similarly configured morning shows have a producer that's responsible for making sure that the mechanics of the program are executed according to the logs and stuff, but also all the other baggage that you carry trying to do a show, because I'm thinking about what I'm going to have to say, or what I'm going to do, or what the bit's going to be, and not all of them are planned. It's some of it's spontaneous. And I posed the idea to the radio management, we need a producer. And to be honest with you, they didn't think so. And their reasoning behind it, Chris is going to laugh when I say this, we've never had one before. Why do we need one now?
Right.
And that was their thinking behind it. Chris actually came in gratis. He came in because I needed him as a friend, and did the production of the morning show up until a time when I insisted, and I'm sure Chris did at one point, where he was a valuable contributed to the program,
And
he got paid for doing it.
valuable was the valuable pay was I think for that first year I was with you was $8,000 for getting up at 4:15 in the morning. So yeah.
Well, Chris had the first thing that he really needed. He had a passion for broadcasting and for showbiz. You know,
And
even in broadcasting.
comedy and fun, and that was my whole thing. And listen, I call myself a production unicorn because I like trying different things, and I had never tried radio. Like I said, I grew up with TV, I did theater, I did music, and radio was nothing I ever understood, and it was just something new to try, and that's why I wanted to get involved with it.
And you took to it like a duck to water, and you were instantly successful in your capacity as a producer. Which became an important part of what the show was. It wasn't just me; it was Chris and me. But here's the valuable thing that I learned in doing the show. I didn't think that I had the stream of consciousness and the spontaneity to carry the conversation that's needed for a morning program where not only are you talking about the traffic and the weather and the commercials and yada yada, but you're also entertaining, and you usually have a subject or something that gets people's attention during that show. Like if we're talking about the genesis of a hero sandwich, it just immediately took over the show as the subject, and that's fine. That's what I was there for. But the thing that I learned that made the show go better, and I'm trying to use it here on this podcast, is that try not to make it be just about you. Try to make it be about the people around you, all the people contributing to it. So on the radio show, I brought the news person into the dialogue. It wasn't just them popping in, doing their news, and leaving the room. I'd stop them and say, "What about that story about the Russian astronaut that took his dog with him?"
They were uncomfortable with that at first too.
Absolutely,
they didn't
because
they
don't
thought
do
it was
that.
Well, but it's there. But I have integrity to be the news person. It's like, you could still give your opinion. It's okay. You could talk about how you feel about it. It's okay. And there was a little kickback to that early on, I remember.
Yeah, I remember we had a newscaster that had a thing for socks and feet. And if I thought that the energy level of the show was, Chris is laughing because he can visualize it. I'd take my shoes off and dangle my socks in front of her while the newscast, and she would literally start dry heaving during the news, like like that. And I knew that I had her at that point. And I got called into the manager's office, and and like Chris said, they were concerned about their credibility as a newscaster being interfered with by Mitch having sound effects of airplanes crashing while they were talking about a near miss in Philadelphia or whatever. And it was just like not to be done. But the thing that I learned really quick was I had a room full of interesting personalities. Why not draw upon them?
Sure.
Why not have fun with them? And Chris helped make that happen because Chris became known to our audience. He wasn't just me. Our newscaster did. Even Scotty, the engineer, is like, he was the most tight-assed engineer you'd ever have. When I'd ask him to come in and explain how radios work, he'd come in, well, the rheostat touched the Frammershism, and I would say, oh, really? And I'm getting and I would just like bust him up trying to be, and he'd like, you're not taking this very seriously. And I said, I'm taking it really seriously. Ooh, get to the part about the battery. Ooh.
And why isn't that that we don't hear that on the radio, Mitch, anymore? You don't hear people, that edginess. It kind of seems like it's evaporated from modern FM radio. Where is that?
And that's why podcasts are popular, right? Because people are talking about how they're feeling, and they're bringing in people from around them for like things like this. This is much more interesting than hearing the same song again, and then the weather and the news, and then here's the next song. That's, and I really feel like the industry, they were skewing towards that, and then all of a sudden they got away from it. And I think that's how podcasting snuck in to be so popular right now.
And I want to bring Mark into the conversation now because to me, talking about things that were happening that people were experiencing in our market, talking about a sandwich shop or an intersection that was always flooded. And they start doing the traffic report, and I said, did it rain? He'd say, well, it's in the forecast. Is it, stay out of that lane at Christiana Mall. It's going to be flooded. And it's just making the QE2 is taking on passengers at Route 7 and Christiana Road. The Stanton Underpass is what it was called. It was just that localism is what made, I think, the shows. By the way, we were successful. We were almost instantly successful because I was the old guy at the time, all of just under 35 years old. And I was still just as relevant because I was the hard local guy. And to bring Mark into the conversation here, Mark, your radio stations are being ultra localized in terms of what they converse about. That's really sticky as radio goes, being able to talk about stuff that's happening around you rather than a syndicated show necessarily talks about national issues, but doesn't talk about issues that hit home in Lewis, Delaware or Rehoboth Beach.
That's right. Most of our show, about 10 hours a day, is live and local programming. So we'll start out at 5 to 9, and it's a lot of news and a lot of interviews of local people that make decisions in the community. So we'll have people that are representing the local governments. We'll have people that represent the schools, people that represent DelDOT. So it's a wide variety of phone calls, some, upset, some applauding the work that's been done. And then later on, as we get up towards noon where we syndicate national shows, it becomes a more national subject matter. And then it comes back down local from 3 to 6, where we take so many phone calls from 3 to 6. It's unbelievable. And the show's called Your Turn Delmarva, and it's just we're flooded with phone calls.
Something about morning shows, where, and I've said this before, so I'll repeat it again, that my program director at WSTW always said to me, so look, no matter what you talk about, people are listening because they want to know it's all okay out there. Reassure them. Or say something to them that communicates, we call them relatables, about what's going on in our marketplace. People want to hear that, particularly in the morning when they get up, because they might be worried about something. They could be worried about that asteroid that's going to crash into the Earth in 2035. Give them something to take their mind off that for a little while. And that's what we did, and we did it brilliantly, and we got immediate great ratings, and then Chris and I decided to take it to the next level, and we got pushback on everything that we tried to do that was new, and Chris will relate to this. Then we decided that we need to get out into the out and rub elbows with everybody. And the first thing we got from doing remote broadcast or appearing somewhere on a street corner or a popular eatery was, well, we just don't do that. And then the next thing you hear from the engineering staff, well, we need to prepare for that. We need to do a survey, decide if the STL is going to be able to plug into the What's-A-Jammer, and you can't be able to be heard. And then what Chris and I said was, we'll take care of that. So give us the van with the crank up antenna and the transmitter. We just take it. And luckily, we had a program director that was so as much into it as we were, and we'd go out. We went out to Dunkin' Donuts. And we were doing a show from Dunkin' Donuts, and it was during the OJ thing, and I immediately guys said, give me as much orange juice as you can, like in a gallon jug, and I was giving out free OJ to people that would drive in on a white Blazer, coming in off the highway. OJ for but anyhow, remember the car chase?
That's funny.
So people thought that was kind of funny, and then as I got bored, I had donuts. And I was like right at the corner of a very highly trafficked highway. And I started tossing these donuts out onto the highway. And I started doing a play-by-play of the people trying to swerve out of the way and hit the donuts and squash them. And here comes the red gremlin. Oh, he smashes a jelly-filled donut. And we just were going on, and the management is going freaking out because they're just seeing, oh, there's going to be an automobile crash or accident. And they weren't.
One of my favorite
fun radio.
One of my favorite things that we did, and this was Mitch's idea, and I didn't know how it was going to play, but it was for April Fool's Day, where we staged that we were broadcasting remotely from an intersection that didn't exist. So we did the whole thing in studio, sound effects, everything, street noises, and he kept saying, yeah, we're right at the intersection of, I forget what it was. It was Shipley and something else.
King and Market, yeah.
Yeah, there were two roads that ran parallel in the state. And everybody's calling the station. Well, no, they can't be there. That doesn't. And he's like, no, it's where, right across from the, there's that store there. I can't see the name of it. And he dragged it out for 2.5 hours before we were able to say April Fool's. And, there were a couple of people that fell in, like got it partway through. But for the most part, the general audience had no idea. And people were driving around all morning trying to find us for the giveaways.
And the funny thing about it is as we figured we were going to get the gag away, we just got more and more absurd. I'm going to have a lady of the evening was propositioning me. It was a sound effect and some pre-recorded stuff. And we had jets flying overhead and dropping bombs on the Radisson Hotel. And it's like, I'd look at Chris and I'd say, they still don't get it.
Exactly.
They still don't get it. It's April Fool's and they still don't get it. And so that's the beauty of radio. We just had a great time with it. Mark,
Mitch,
do we have any questions coming in? This is just a crazy time.
Before we get to that question, I just want to say, I feel like if you guys did that now in 2025, I feel like that would be lost on a whole new audience. Like whatever 20-somethings, if there are any 20-somethings listening to the radio on the way to work. I don't know if that.
It wouldn't play. Humor. No, you got to remember this is pre-Google, right? Like this is before Google.
Right.
Before social media.
I know before like computers were just coming around, right? Around this time. Like sure. we were using them just to, look at my cool font, But at that time, like even the philosophy, Mitch, and I know you talk about that a lot, and they used to say it, the people just want to know everything's okay. Well, they do now instantly when they wake up. They don't need DJs to tell them anymore. They don't need that radio because they can look at their phone and know everything's okay. And now I'm going to go take my shower. It's a whole different vibe now. And like what you were even saying is trying to get your thoughts together to communicate a bit to an audience where while you're trying to do that, you're pulling your next stop set carts, right? You got to go back there. We had the CDs that you had to pull out for your next hour's worth. Like you're trying to do all this, like all they're doing is hitting go now, right? It's all pre-sequenced. All they have to do is hit go, and all they could do is focus on what they have to say. It wasn't the luxury then. So I think those having to, because life wasn't so instant for people to get their information, we were able to pull stuff like that off. Because somebody could literally wake up and Google, where's the intersection of Shipley and State Road? And they'd be like, there isn't one. They would know that immediately and be in on the gag, whereas we were able to drag it out for 2.5 hours because information wasn't at their fingertips.
Mark, you have a question coming in?
We do have a question, but one thing I want to add to the conversation was the one thing radio still has is that it's basically it's a clock for people when they get up in the morning. They know that when news and traffic comes on or whatever comes on, that they have to be at a certain part of their day before they go out that front door. And so radio does that better than TV. It does it better than the newspaper. It's a way to kind of schedule your day in the morning.
Yeah, that's why we did the shower hour.
Right.
We turned the shower on, and people I'd be showering with them while they're taking a shower. I said, would you like a little more loofah on the lower extremities over there? Just playing with that. Okay, sorry.
All right.
Go ahead.
So let's get on to our questions. Our friend TJ Asher from Minneapolis has a question. In general, does a producer drive the direction or tone of a show for various bits or segments, like on a morning show? Or does the talent set the tone of the show?
I'll take that if you want.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely mutual. I think the producer has to be the driving force because he's the one that's sitting back seeing how things are playing. Sometimes when the talent is in the moment so deep, they can't always feel the energy of what's going on with the listeners and how things might be reacting. They can't see what's going on with the phones all the time. So yeah, I tried to steer it based on where I felt it would go. And if Mitch would say, I got an idea, let's try this instead. And I'm like, go for it. If I totally disagree with him, I would tell him, but I think it's a mutual give and take. But yes, the producer definitely does steer the direction of things, I think.
Yeah, the producer has the 10,000-foot view of what's going on. And the talent, which was me in that case, is just to spurt out as much craziness as I could manage and have the producer edit that to the point where, Chris I'd feel a hand on my shoulder, which meant just give it up, stop that one. And I we would have this nonverbal communication. It worked so well. And I lament the days of what that used to be, the way radio used to work in those days, because we could pull that kind of stuff off. Today, like I say, Chris says it wouldn't fly. It's like if you brought Seinfeld back, do you think it'd be a hit the second time around now, like it was the first time around? A show about nothing. Essentially, that's what I was doing. I was just copying Seinfeld because I made everybody in the building, everybody from the general manager to chief engineer, and remember the sales guy that used to come in and jump on me right in the middle of his show, and I'd tell him to get the hell out. He'd come in. Mike,
he would come in and start yelling because you were talking about like a product or something, or a client's thing, a client's product, and they would come in and get all bent out of shape and stuff like that too, right in the middle of the show.
I'd call him the sales Nazi.
Yeah.
Which probably wouldn't fly too well today, but he remembers that to this day and probably won't forgive me. Has another job, and I run into him once in a while, and he didn't like it. But it's just like the friction was part of the fun too. And if it was a bad thing that happened, like we had an astronaut that was supposed to show up on the show. I forget his name. He was going up on the next shuttle, and we had him on as a guest, and he couldn't show up or didn't show up for whatever reason. So I faked the whole conversation along with the beeps and the whole thing, and it was just silliness, But I got a call from our program director, said, I don't know where that came from, but it was better than if he had shown up and announced something outrageous. So that was the fun of the radio then, and it's a little bit of the fun that we do here on this podcast, because the idea that anything can happen at any time is the thing that I'd like to leave any audience or people that are sitting there listening. He's liable to do just about anything. And it's the job of the producer to make sure you don't go a little too far out there, and not be crazy,
That's the other side of it, is not only are you trying to steer the show, you're running block as well. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're any issues that are coming up, any people that are staring in the door where they're mad, or any phone calls that are becoming problematic, like you have to the producer has to manage all that and keep steering, taking things to a positive resolve. Right. So that's where the job gets complicated.
Yeah. And having somebody like Chris as a producer in the room, if I did a bit like I have a phone bit, somebody would call me up and say, yeah, you're just trying to be Howard Stern, or whatever. And I said, no, not at all. I've been doing this longer than Howard Stern has been around, but it never really crossed my mind. And then somebody would call and say, are you the guy that when I call up on the request line to play a song or something, you make a funny laugh and then hang up on me? And I go, that's ridiculous. Just I'd look over at Chris, and Chris would sort of give me that worked, or there was a lot of that going on. So to me, having a producer and allowing them to do their job, which Chris did. I mean, even when we went to Disney World to do our show from Disney MGM Studios. We managed to find a way to get Chris down there. I had to share the room with him, but that was okay. We just did crazy stuff, and the people at Disney were really worried because of the stuff that I was doing or saying. Like, didn't we do a thing called the Disney Challenge? We'd go down on the log flume, and it turned out that we couldn't take the tape recorder on the log flume. So
right, yeah, there was a bunch of stuff we were trying to do, and yeah.
Chris is in the room, and I figured I'm going to just fake this. So I went into the bathroom and filled the bathtub with water and just started splashing water and making funny sounds. And all I hear is his laugh coming from outside in the rest of the suite we were in. And Chris said, "What the hell are you doing in there?" I was doing the bit for the next day. So yeah, you could see the smile on our faces. We had a great time
good
doing
times.
that. And Chris, do you think at any time what you did or what we did helped you into other things? Because you didn't stay there forever. You were there even after I left.
I was there about 5. Yeah, I was with you. I was only with you for like a year, and then I stayed another 4.
Right, okay.
And then, it became blatantly obvious that the salary in radio was going to be forever below the salary of theater. So it's broke but happy, and then you kind of keep getting less broke but happy. It's I don't know, Mitch. It's yes, it did. It did. And listen, I think everything that I've done, I think everything I did in theater helped me in radio. I think everything I did in radio helped me in music. I think everything I did in music helped me with video. Like it all just, it's all a part of who I am. You know, those experiences are priceless. I mean, so many great memories of and just working fast. I think what I miss most about it is the adrenaline.
Yeah,
right.
Being live.
It's like when you're lighting a concert, to put it in a theater tone. You know, there's that the house lights go out and the audience roars, and you're just, that adrenaline pump is through the roof. It's the same thing when 5:30 would hit and that on-air sign hit. The adrenaline pump was there, you know, and that's what I miss was we're going to hit it or we're going to screw it up, but we're doing it, right? And we're going to commit to whatever we're going to screw it up or we're going to hit it. We're going to commit and we're going to try everything. That's what's great about radio, and what was great about radio. Today, it's a different animal, but that's what it was great for us.
But we took it beyond that, and you took it further, which is neat. And I did too. I in my business, the day-to-day business, I was a video producer, and we would do big shows at like resorts and places. We did it for like the Athlete's Foot.
I remember that.
I got to bring Chris in for this. You know, Chris ran the show, and I'll never forget. Chris was just he was fizzing. He was so full of that adrenaline and excitement. It was just getting ready to hit the first cue. We had video screens and thousands of people in the audience. And I'm sitting next to him, and I reach over. You'd never forget the look on Chris's face. And I just reached over to the keyboard and went, and Chris looked at me and said, "Are you freaking crazy?" Because I just had to see what was going to break that fizz.
Alex, here's why that's funny, all right? Because the half hour prior to that, or maybe 45 minutes prior to that, we could not get all of the slides and videos running through the Targa card, the special card for the projector for this. And this is a large event, thousands of people for this event.
So the anxiety was really high.
Right. So then it's like 20 minutes before we're supposed to hit the first cue, everything gets figured out. So now it's we're just sequencing. Mitch lines up the little liquor bottles that he got from the plane. He lines them up and starts drinking. And literally finished one. Look, how we doing? We're doing. Yeah, I need about 15 minutes. Okay, we're good. He would take another one. How we doing? And it was literally, that's why then right before we started, I'm like, okay, we're ready. And then he just slams on the keyboard. That was a mind-blowing. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, and it wasn't always fun and games, even on the radio. At the time that I was doing the morning show on WSTW, I was also partners in an ad agency, and I would do my 3 or 4 hours at the radio station, and it was a successful show that was getting a lot of listeners. So with the success, there was no longer any anonymity. What's the word? Anonymity.
Anonymity.
Yep. Anonymity. Thank you. Appreciate that. See, that's why he's a great producer. It was like I couldn't escape the radio show when I'd walk away and I would get done. The radio people weren't used to that. They would expect you to stick around and do this and do voiceovers and do promotional things. I was out the door because I had a whole bunch of other people waiting for me to talk about the Bank of Delaware or whatever promotional thing that we had to do. So I was really getting a tug of war. I'd have to excuse myself from a multi-million-dollar meeting with one of the big banks in town to go out and do the Arby's lunch patrol. And it's like, excuse me, I got to go do lunch patrol. And my partners would go, they would stare daggers at me. And they would say, you're doing a lunch patrol delivering Arby's sandwiches to some body shop in West Wilmington? And I said, yeah, I got to do it. It's part of my radio show. And I said, we're your partners in the ad agency. So you get into push and pull. And at one point, I frankly started feeling some pressure over it. And I learned what anxiety was and what an anxiety attack. And one of the worst moments of me being on the air is I'm on the air, and it's the last time it's happened, thank God. I'm on the air talking with Chris, and I look at Chris and I said, uh-oh. And I literally slumped and hit the ground because my heart was racing. I thought I was having a heart attack. And I just literally fell on the ground. And Chris is like, what? So he's trying to run the show, standing over my almost obnoxiously dead body on the ground. And I'm like lying there wondering, what the hell's happening? And I had to go to the hospital. And it turned out it was no big thing. It was nothing, but I didn't realize what all that pressure was doing to me, pulling me in both directions.
And while that was going on, I'm calling the production manager. I'm like, you need to get over here and get on the air. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, Mitch is on the floor. I don't know what's going on, but there's an interview coming up. You need to get here now. He's like, okay.
It's like flying an airplane that goes into some kind of a failure mode, and you got to fly the aircraft. So I thank you for that, Chris, publicly and otherwise. But luckily, I have not had that problem since then because I removed the area of frustration.
That was a high-stress time, too. It really was.
It was.
Balancing all that stuff. Absolutely.
When you're number one, you only got one place to go, and that's down.
Right.
And the other thing with radio is that then, as it is now, there's no equity in it. You know, they love you now because you're number one. And when I quit, they said, oh, how can you do that to us? And I said, well, wait a minute. Why don't I stay another year when the ratings start to slump and you begin to hate me? Then you can fire me when you don't give a damn about me. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? They really took it personally when I decided to leave broadcasting and get out of the business. I haven't been on the air since then. But today I'd love to go back on again because now would have been a better time because I don't have the conflicts that I had back then. But there were some good times, there were some bad times, and I did miss that. And our mutual friend and program director, Michael Andrzejewski, has passed away, which is sorry to see him go. And a lot of other people I've known in radio have passed. So it's there's some bittersweet moments to go along with that. So let's switch gears here just a little bit. And I just want to acknowledge a couple of things. If you live in the Philadelphia region, you probably might know this, but you may not don't know it. Here I go, Chris. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag.
Here he goes.
Chris is a Philadelphia theater broadcasting royalty. His dad was Al Albert, and Al Albert's had a children's show on Channel 6, the ABC Disney channel that did all kinds of stuff. And Chris, you grew up with that. That was back in the day when TV stations had local celebrities like Sally Starr and Larry Ferrari and Al Albert Showcase. Tell us what it was like as a kid growing up with your famous father being on TV in Philadelphia as a local station. Did that lead to your theater career?
Well, I don't know. I kind of wound up in theater just in a different way. I kind of fell into it when I was in high school, and it just took me in a different direction. I was like, oh, I like this. I grew up backstage, so I grew up behind the cameras when he was doing a show. And Mitch, you said earlier, you were only supposed to be on the air for 2 weeks, and it lasted 3 years. And that was the same thing with my dad. He was originally on Channel 48, right prior to Channel 6. And ABC said, listen, we want to bring you over here. We want to do a 13-week contract. And the Channel 48, the UHF channel, was a guaranteed gig. And he said, let's just take the short one. Let's try this ABC thing. And that was a 13-week contract that lasted 32 years, and it was, I grew up at auditions every Monday night at J&A Caterers on South Broad Street. And then they would shoot every Wednesday night, and it just became, the show became, instead of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, it was always 3 degrees to Al Alberts in Philadelphia. Somebody knew somebody that was on the show. And I still get that. I still have people reaching out to me saying, oh my gosh, my niece used to be on the show, and now she's got 2 grandkids, and they wanted to know, can they still see the show somewhere? And there's a couple clips of it on YouTube, but other than that, that's about it. There's so much of the original stuff was gone. But when you think of some of the, the original, my gosh, Teddy Pendergrass and Sister Sledge and the original Annie from Broadway, Andrea McCardle, and 4 of the original Orphans all got yanked out of our cast.
Wow.
There was a whole lot of talent that came through that show. It was just an amazing experience. But, yeah, I just, I grew up, and besides the TV aspect, they used to do lots of live performances, and I went to all those shows with them, and I was always backstage, and I think I started running lights very early on for him and running sound because I knew how, I knew what he was looking for, and I would sit with the sound guy as a young teen, and who the hell wants to listen? I know if I'm in the theater, I don't want to listen to a 13-year-old tell me what to do, but I knew what I was doing, and they would appreciate it and give me a shot. And so, yeah, I kind of just, I like the idea of live theater more than broadcast and TV. But it all comes around. I do video now. So it's like, it's a full circle.
Sure, sure. Hey, by the way, I miss your mom and your dad. They were wonderful people, and they were of the old school. They knew their audience. They treated them with respect.
Yep.
There wasn't a moment where I didn't see your dad smiling for a young kid, where he would get down on his knees and look them in the eye and encourage them to pursue their interest. Even when he came to visit our show, your dad came in. He was a regular person, but I'll tell you what, as soon as that on the air light came on, it's just like a switch would
Right.
click. And he would just like turn it on.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to Chris, I said, your dad looks great, and he acts wonderful. And I'd say, wow, he's got the hair. And Chris would say, that's not his hair. And I'd be like, no, it can't be so. But it was just, it was a different time.
Yeah.
Back in the 60s and maybe the early 70s to see him. And he had a hit song On the Way to Cape May, which they still play in Philadelphia, even on the rock stations.
I know.
When it comes time to head to the beaches to enjoy yourself. So it's kind of neat that you were part of that royalty, and I'll say it because that's what it was. It was showbiz royalty back in the time, and the fact that you've taken a little piece of that forward into your career, into different areas is wonderful. We've been talking a lot about technology, and it's been changing a lot of what's going on around us. I recently, let's see, I'm trying to get something ready to do here so I can, okay, there we go. I recently talked about AI. The latest thing with AI now is that you can take something and you can turn it into something that's totally believable or not. And Adobe just announced this thing called Firefly,
Yep.
where you can send a picture into it, and then it will take that picture and make it do something. Here's why I don't trust AI. I took my picture from The Last Angry DJ and told the thing that said, make this a happy Mitch. So here's why I don't like it. What the hell is that?
Wow.
Is that just crazy, weird?
That is frightening as all hell.
That's
It
an
isn't-
unsee thing, Mitch. Thanks.
It's just weird, and it just bothers me to death. That's AI's version of me telling it, make Mitch happy and have him dance. Well, somehow I turned into some
Crazy.
perverted old guy with Cyrillic type around him. There you go. Just a little bit of a taste of what AI is doing. Chris, how do you survive in the video business where everything on the internet you have to question? You have to say, is that real, or can it be real, or is it
Listen,
real?
I know I'm going to be aging out of this world at the right time. Honestly, I mean, it's the way I have to look at it, because I know like what I'm doing now. I love editing. I really do. But I know that probably 5 years from now, they're not going to need people like me anymore. I think you're always going to still need humans, but it's getting crazy now. Have you ever used Suno.com? Have you played around with that at all for
No,
music?
I avoid all of those AI
Okay,
thingies.
look, you go check it out. For the simple reason, I had a client here who said, I really want to do a jingle. And I'm like, you know how expensive they are? And I said, here, look. And I went and I typed in, give me a jingle about a company called XYZ, and they do cleaning, and their whole word is reliability. Go. And you sit there, 30 seconds, you get a fully produced vocals, the whole thing.
Wow.
And it's phenomenal. Like when
Well,
I tell you,
what's that do to your jingle business?
I don't have a jingle business anymore.
Bummer.
I got out of jingles a long time ago because it was just nobody. It's one of those things, nobody wanted to pay for it, and unless you're Coke and Pepsi, and I wasn't doing that kind of work, Nobody
Wow.
wants to pay for anything. And when this stuff comes, and that's what I'm saying, this is now going to happen with video too. It's getting to the point where you can take your video and just run it through a thing, and it'll kick out 4 shorts for you to throw online. Nobody has to edit them anymore. It's all going to change crazy. That's the irony of all of it when you think about the music business. Digital made everything so easy for us and so accessible to people, and it totally killed the business.
Right.
As a business model for musicians, they can't make money unless they're on the road.
Wow. So
And
they're all touring in order to make ends meet.
Yeah, because there's some bands out there right now. I've been following this band called Lawrence, who I am just blown away by their talent.
Yeah, I just discovered those guys.
Oh, go down that wormhole, Alex. When I tell you, like, a couple of their songs have gotten me through the past year, like, their stuff is just
And their
amazing.
show, their live show, how I found out about them is actually Nick Dela Cruz, who does these interviews with the front of house engineers at bands, did this whole behind the scene things about their stage production show, and it's incredible the amount of work that those guys put into that thing.
Yeah, but it's a brother-sister act with 2 of the most amazing vocals you've ever heard and great songwriting. Anyway, I happened to stumble across them in a TikTok short, and then found them on YouTube, and then subscribed to them, and I listened to them on Spotify. They're not making any money off of me. Like,
Wow.
they're not. They're making, what is it, 0.0006 cents per play? Something ridiculous. Gino Vanelli just put a new album out, and he even did a post, because I follow him, and he did a post saying, yeah, Sony told me that I got 100,000 listens in my first thing. That's great. Thanks. That'll be about $6. That's not why I'm doing it. You know, he's doing it because he can and because he loves it. But not, new artists can't do that, you know? So yeah, that's the problem with digital. And the same thing's going to happen with video now that the technology's gotten caught up from the simplicity of the audio to the complexity of the video.
And that really started, 20 years ago with has it been 20 years? Probably has, or close to that, but not quite with the iPhone launch, because once not with the iPhone launch really, but when the iTunes store launched,
Yep.
Apple had this idea from, like, Steve Jobs had this idea. They wanted to do these deals where all songs to buy were 99 cents, and this really basically completely changed the whole industry, because before that everybody was buying full albums. If you wanted music, you were buying a CD, or you were buying a vinyl record before that, or you were buying a cassette tape before that. There was no such thing as this kind of a la carte model where I'm just going to buy 1 or 2 whatever songs I want. And so that kind of devalued music. And then, of course, I think streaming music has further devalued music. And also you see that with the App Store with software development. I mean, there are parallels there. Making software, making music, those are 2 things that cost a lot of money, that cost a lot of resources, and they're really hard to do. And so now people are used to spending 99 cents on music, or spending $10 a month and having access to unlimited music, or spending 99 cents on an app. And so, that thing that cost, $250,000 to make, that you bought for 99 cents, that took them, almost a year to build now. What does that say? Like, that it trains people to not really value the product. No, look, I as a consumer, I'm not helping because I'm buying these apps, but I want to support the people that make music and stuff like that. And I still buy physical media because I prefer it that way. But you're absolutely right. Streaming music does not make money, and all artists of all kinds have to put so much time on the road to do these shows because they wouldn't have a business.
Well, the other problem is that there's a bit of a dumbing down of quality ever since Napster came along and MP3.
MP3 is the one that really started the whole thing, because they were prior to Apple doing their thing.
That's right. And because the MP3s were not quite as good, but they sure were convenient, people said, well, that's good enough.
Yep.
And that good enough sort of prevails even today in a lot of ways. So there's been a lot of dumbing down of the music industry, which has unfortunately had repercussions. I know I'm sounding like my dad when I say this, is that there's a lot of good musicians out there today, but it's not like it was during the 70s and the 80s where all these new groups were coming along, and there was a lot of variety of music, and it was the songs that we used to choose to go on the air had a hook, were melodic in their presentation, and I'm sounding like the old guy now.
Mitch, I just saw a T-shirt that said, "Listen, I know I'm old, but your music still sucks." and we're always going to be. Everybody's always going to love the music of their, that 20s, 30s, or late teens, early 20s kind of thing. That's what you're going to be bonded to. But I do agree with you. I don't hear the hooks like I used to.
Yeah, it's true.
I think I'd argue against it. I think there's, and now that I'm in my 40s,
as you should, Alex.
I've become more stuck in my ways, but I have been trying and I've been making the effort to find new music, and I have to say there is stuff out there. It is not necessarily commercial success. It is not necessarily on the radar, but they have these bands like Lawrence, who's an up and coming band, have these smaller, very devout audiences. They're not doing big arena shows, but they're putting on these great shows. And I think if you look hard enough, if you make an effort, you can find stuff that's really well made, well produced, well written. I think it's out there, and I think they're always.
And I agree with you. I don't think a lot of it's mainstream. I think mainstream is a very repetitious thing out there right now. But you're right. And I'll tell you, I think that's why I started with TikTok early on, because people said, "Hey, there's some really cool music there." And I would scroll through, and I found so many great bands through just scrolling and seeing little clips going, "Oh, there's a cool vibe. I like that." And that's how I've been finding music as a 65-year-old guy gone looking at TikTok. But whatever, that's okay.
Are you bragging, Chris? Are you bragging about being 65?
Well,
I've got you beat there. I'm
63.
Now.
It's okay. So I'm
right.
63.
All right. The other thing that we were talking about with AI is you can't trust everything that's on the internet. I think that we need to have some kind of an indicator that indicates that this President Trump playing a guitar with Putin in a band may or may not be real. I just had a friend have me produce something. This is kind of interesting. Remember Sir Mix-a-Lot had the song Baby's Got Back? This is the same Sir Mix-a-Lot. Watch what happens. I built this thing for him. It's called a truthometer, and the idea is that this meter would actually jump up and down depending. Let me see where. Let me get it. Oh, okay, I'll get this version of it. Would jump up and down and tell them whether it was true or not. And that's from Sir Mix-a-Lot. So I use it without his permission, but I produced the thing. I think that's what you need to have on the screen now, is something that jumps in and says, this may not be real material. So, because everything on the internet is not necessarily real.
It's hard to tell sometimes, man. It really is.
And do you find out with music, with the way it's done? I mean, first of all, Chris used to own a recording studio, and he had legitimate artists come in with his big Studer and MCI board, used to record hit songs there. So, Chris, how do you feel about the way music's done now with somebody in a garage somewhere with a Pro Tools set, recording one instrument at a time?
I do the same thing.
How do you feel about that? You do the same thing.
I have no problem with it. I
mean, over to the dark side.
No, listen, I never was the kind of musician who could play in a band. I wasn't that good. I was the kind of guy, and I still am. I could look at sheet music. I can look at it and know what it sounds like. Could I sit down and play it? No. So it's just I'm trying to get the brain to look at the notes and convert it to the fingertips. I couldn't do it. But I was once MIDI came about and got married to the computer. Well, all of a sudden I could compose things, and so I don't have a problem with people that play all of it that way and do it in Pro Tools. There's still great bands out there, like Lawrence. So.
I'm going to check them out, but I had no idea what you were talking about.
Check out. When you look them up, they do a version of they have their album version, and then they do a live in studio version called the acoustic-ish version, and it's always one camera, one take live, and it will blow your mind.
I'll check it out for sure. Yep. We've obviously we are holding our audience spellbound with this dissertation about what Chris and I are talking about, old stuff and with music. So we don't have a ton of questions coming in. But Mark, can you take a peek at some of the people that are sitting in our chat room that are enjoying what we're talking about? Can you just acknowledge some of those folks?
Yeah, sure. So we have Hershey and John Preto and Equipment Institute and a couple other people here. So Bradiverse. So
they're there. They're lurking. And Alex, how do people get in touch with us if they have a question or a comment or a suggestion for a guest?
Yeah, absolutely. There's multiple ways that you can do that. I will introduce you to our QR code on the screen here. So if you scan that with your camera, and I will leave this up on the screen for a couple seconds there, but that will take you to our Discord community. That's the single best place to chat with us during the show, after the show. If you have comments, suggestions, topics you want us to cover in future episodes, please do that. It's just a fun place to talk to each other. So I'd recommend you do that. Of course, you can also reach out to us on social media. We are on all platforms under the same name of our podcast, at The Last Angry DJ, everywhere. And, of course, you can reach us the old-fashioned way by email, hello@thelastangrydj.com. We have a website as well. You can check that out as well, and we post all clips there to the show. There's a contact form there, and also, what am I missing here? Also, just a reminder, too, if you would like to support this show, there are numerous ways you can do that and contribute to it. You can subscribe and like to the show. You can also share it with a friend. That would be greatly appreciated. Of course, you can donate with dollars. So if you go to patreon.com/thelastangry.dj, that's patreon.com/thelastangry.dj. You can do that. Become a coffee supporter at $2 a month. We would appreciate that as well. And this show is also available as an audio podcast for your morning commute to work if you prefer that. We're on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and Stitcher. We're on your Amazon Alexa device and Google on all platforms as well.
All right. Thank you, Alex. And Chris, if people want to reach out to you with your talents of doing music production, video, photography, how do they reach out to you?
Standingroom.com is my website. Gives a sample of the kind of work I've been doing, and all the contact information's right there.
All right, appreciate that. It was just great to have you on, Chris. I mean, to recapture some of the fun back in the old days, and we just scratched the surface of some of the stories that we can tell, some of which will never be told. Out of respect to they say the names have been changed to protect the innocent. Well, there's lots of innocent people out there. We're going to keep that away. And if somebody put the call out and said, Mitch, we need you to reprise your morning show, I would only do it if I could have Chris or Alex produce it. Would you be in for it to do something like? You could do it remotely nowadays. Everybody's working from home.
Alex, you could take it.
He's giving it away.
Listen, I'm always game for something new, and that would be new. So, you can call on me.
I got enough of Mitch on this show, so I don't know how many more shows I can.
I would imagine.
There he goes.
There we go. See, now it's coming out. He waits till the last second. Okay.
It's all right. Hey, have at it. It's fun. I mean, if it's entertaining, if people find some fun out of it, then I'm all for it. I'm willing to do just about anything for a laugh Mitch, or a gag.
Congratulations. You went through the entire episode without making one Canadian joke today. You didn't mention back bacon, maple syrup. You didn't mention I'm very impressed. You're progressing.
You don't know how close I came to getting on you about a boot, because it's not a boot, it's a bout. And I heard an a boot there,
right.
and
I don't say that. No,
that's all right. But I love our Canadian neighbors. And you have every reason. There's going to be a future hassle when the tariff goes through for Canadian. How do you feel about that tariff coming through from our president?
I will only say this. I don't panic until something actually happens. So right now the tariffs are on hold. So I will pass judgment once something actually happens. So I'm not.
What, you have a name for that? It's a moral.
I don't engage in moral panic mode before I start making guesses about what's going to happen, because it's not good for your mental health.
But that's what news does. All they do is prognosticate.
That's why I ignore it.
Guess. Okay. Well, that's why I don't watch the news anymore. There's nothing in there, unless it's that what is it, 2024 YR4 asteroid that's going to crash into the Earth. in 2035. I'm convinced it's going to have a bullseye right over my house. No matter where I go, it's going to smash into my place. But 7 years from now, I may not be breathing. Who the heck knows? So there you
Canada
go.
will be a 51st state by then.
Yeah, exactly. That's for sure. Well, that's it. We appreciate it. Number 52 is heading for the can. You can reach out to us in the usual ways. We appreciate that. And as always, I want to thank our regular customers here for making this all possible. You'll see a few of those names on our credits when we roll them. And once again, to Chris, thank you so much, buddy. Break a leg, married, all the good stuff in your future endeavors down there in Florida. You've gone to the warm area. At least I know I got a place to stay if I have to go on vacation and I want to do a Bed Bath and Albert's, something to that effect.
That's an interesting combo, but okay.
All right. Take care, folks. Be safe.
Take care, guys. Thanks.
Swagger down the street with your red lips and funky beat. You better hold your head up to the sky. I'm gonna roll with you till the day I die.